The American President Donald Trump's latest trade threat has sent shockwaves through global markets. Now, President Donald Trump has signed a set of letters outlining the proposed tariff levels on exports from 12 nations. Now, Trump says that the offers will be non-negotiable, a take it or a leave it proposition to the United States trading partners. But Trump has declined to identify the countries receiving the letters, saying that their names will be revealed on Monday.
I signed some letters, and they'll go out on Monday, probably 12. 12 different amounts of money, different amounts of tariffs, and somewhat different statements.
Mr. President, which countries will receive those letters on Monday?
You'll be announced. I have to announce it on Monday. I can't do it.
Now, the plan marks a shift from earlier this week when Trump had indicated that the first batch of letters would be sent on Friday, which would be a national holiday in America, though the timing has now been revised. Now, Trump said that the unilateral import tariffs will range from 10% to as high as about 70%, with the new rates set to kick in from the 1st of August. The move follows the end of the 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs that were first announced in April. Meanwhile, the European Union is in a race against time. Brussels is holding emergency trade talks with Washington this weekend, hoping to preserve the existing 10% tariffs on most exports and to avoid a sharp jump to 50% on key sectors like cars and steel. Currently, the EU car exports already face 25% tariffs and steel faces about 50% duties. A draft deal under negotiation reportedly includes special provisions for every car that a European automaker builds in the United States and exports back to Europe. One EU-made vehicle could enter the US tariff-free, but that may only benefit a few players like BMW. The United States is also pushing the EU to relax restrictions on US meat imports, including allowing most US beef, while keeping the ban on chlorine-washed chicken. The proposal includes a controversial 17% tariff on certain EU agricultural products. Now, Trump's strategy involves categorizing trading partners based on deal progress. Countries with preliminary deals, like the United Kingdom and Vietnam, will keep a 10% baseline tariff with room for future predictions. Now, those nearing an agreement may in fact face some mid-tier tariffs, while those with poor progress will see the full weight of the proposed hikes. The economists in fact note that the delayed August start indicates that the United States still wants more room for negotiations, but retaliation is likely if talks were to fail, and EU officials have warned of countermeasures. The stakes are pretty high, with industries, supply chains and geopolitical ties hanging in the balance. All right, now to make sense of these Donald Trump's tariffs and how they could in fact impact the global economy, we are joined on this broadcast by Dr. Andrew Ferris, who is the CEO of Ecognosis Advisory Limited. He's joining us live from London. Dr. Ferris, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, this statement by Donald Trump that he's come up with a set of proposals for 12 nations, and this is going to be a take it or a leave it sort of a measure. In your assessment, is this even a beginning of a negotiation, or what is Donald Trump's strategy here?
No, it isn't, actually. The very little we know is that he has a kind of a mafia approach, okay? It's either your signature or your brains on this piece of paper, and no self-respecting country should even begin to negotiate. If I was to receive a letter like that, I will say I'll tear it up, and I will say, if you impose those tariffs on me without us negotiating, then I will double and impose them back to you. We know that when China puts its foot down, it worked. There is no reason whatsoever why the second or possibly the first most populous country in the world, led by a freely democratic administration, should even begin to accept that. You know, I will be absolutely shocked that my favorite India received a letter and it says, yeah, that's fair enough. Receive a letter that actually on the green famous piece of paper that Trump showed on Liberation Day, China had a reciprocal tariff of 26%. Okay, well, let's say it receives a 26%, and this is something that the Modi administration does not even remotely feels it is appropriate. Okay, I will tell to Trump and say, okay, we're going to double that to 52%. Bye-bye, don't call us. It has to be like that. This has to end. Okay, there are no negotiations under deadlines and under a take it or leave it approach, particularly from huge, big, important countries and liberal and democratic countries like India.
Absolutely, indeed. That, of course, is going to be something that will be looked at, and that's an approach that is going to be taken up. But in the context of Europe, because Europe is one of the biggest traders with the United States of America, is there a strategy that Brussels can come up with to try and deal with Donald Trump and his tariffs? Or is this, make it as we go along? Because Donald Trump has not opened his cards out with respect to how he expects the Europeans to respond here.
Yeah, I know it's very easy for me to be sitting on my armchair and telling big governments what to do. I'm simply telling you my opinion. In the case of the European Union, they should take a leaf out of the fact that the administration of Trump is a complete shambles. Okay, it is a parody of an administration. His second most important advisor, okay, now tells him, or apparently something like along the line that he's a fat pig. They quarrel like two children in the schoolyard. It managed to pass his famous big important bill with an unbelievably slim majority. In other words, the Congress is not 75% behind him. It ain't. Okay, and every time something is said, then it is unsaid, postponed. Really, the deadline used to be 9th of July. Now it is 1st of August. Okay,
right.
So if I was in Europe, I would say, drill it out, stretch it out, argue on every single point, give fake deadlines, storm out, being incredibly upset, just behave the way he does, and let's see what happens.
Interesting. That could be an approach.
Childish, but there is nothing else I can tell you.
I think you've put the point very strongly indeed. We need to, of course, see as to have, Brussels and other nations, of course, take up these negotiations with Donald Trump. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Andrew Freris, for joining us with that perspective there.
It's a pleasure.